Oh dear, I apologise to Kylie Kilburn for totally ruining her song. It's a cool song, it's nice and chilled out. It's not my kind of music, I'll be honest, but, you know, sometimes it is really nice just to sort of relax, unwind with a cup of coffee, and annihilate the occasional universe. Now, if you want to check out the rest of her music, she does have a MySpace page, as all people like that do. Go check it out. I can give you the address, I think. I have it somewhere. Where the hell is it? Ah! Yes. See, I'm very ill-prepared for this one. There we go. You can go to KylieKilburn.com. That's KylieKilburn.com, spelled K-I-L-E-Y, K-I-L-B-U-R-N. As opposed to KylieKiljaden.com. That would work. Yeah. We all know he likes pretty pink girly panties. Right, ladies and gentlemen. I have some content. I've heard that this is a good thing. So I got a hypothesis. Right? I've taken to looking at statistics. Yeah, I know, it sounds really boring, but I've taken to looking at all these different statistics sites, and my conclusion is they're all really bad, in the sense that they're inaccurate as hell. But the one that I've found that looks and makes the most sense is wow.guildprogress.com. That's wow.guildprogress.com. Now, the point of these sites have existed for a little while, but the point of these is to try and track just how far all players have got in the game. Now, it used to exist in the form of WoW Jutsu, which was not especially accurate, but it gave a decent ballpark figure. Now, with the introduction of achievements, it's easier to accurately track how many people have done what. So, I had a look at this, and I wanted to see just how many people had got anywhere whatsoever in Wrath of the Lich King. And the results were not exactly surprising, I'm sorry to say. Now, we have a look at it. You can go and check it out with me. It's wow.guildprogress.com. That's wow.guildprogress.com. Now, you can have a look at Wrath of the Lich King, the Wrath of the Lich King button, and you'll notice there are 94,867 ranked guilds. So I did a little bit of maths, and just to try and average things out, my theory is that accounts for about 4 million 4 million guildies, 4 million players who have done some kind of raiding, yeah? So that accounts for pugs as well. If they're in a guild and they have an achievement, then one assumes that the guild is counted. So, yeah, that's about 4 million. So, here's the question. How far have they gotten? Yeah? 94,867 ranked guilds. Now, the most commonly killed boss, outside of Archivon, because we don't really count him, is Sartharia with no drakes. Yeah? Sartharia with no drakes has been killed by 87.86% of guilds. Yeah? Quite a lot. And that's not entirely surprising, because killing Sartharia with no drakes involves, let's see, the ability to not stand in the fire. It's like an easier version of Heigen. Now that is 10-man. At 25-man, only 62% of guilds have killed Sartharia with no drakes. Now we can move on, of course, to Naxxramas. Naxxramas normal has been cleared by 74% of guilds. Yeah? I should certainly hope so after the amount of time that they've done that. That's Naxxramas, 10-man. Naxxramas 25-man, on the other hand, has only been killed by 41% of guilds. Which is odd. Well, what can you take from that statistic? Well, the answer is pretty simple. We already know that 25-man is actually, in some respects, easier than 10-man. Yeah? It's about on the level. So, if we assume for a couple of percent of variance of the odd fight, like, say, Kel'Thuzad, which is slightly harder, then you can assume, therefore, that you've got more 10-man guilds. Well, not so much more 10-man guilds, but you've got guilds that have done the 10-man and only the 10-man. And then you've got guilds who've done the 10-man and the 25-man, which is pretty much any 25-man guilds has probably done the 10-man as well. I can't think of a situation where that wouldn't be the case. So you've got quite a difference there. 41% of guilds. Yeah, that's less than half of the guilds who are ranked on this site have done it. You look at other stats like that as well. Malagos, 48% on normal, 23% otherwise. And then you can look at the achievement statistics, and wow, everything goes to pot after that. Obsidian Sanctum Heroic, 8% of guilds have done 3 drakes, Sartharian. 16% 2 drakes, 28% 1 drake. Massive difference there. And 8.3%, indeed less, have done 2 drakes on 10-man and 3 drakes on 10-man, which of course makes sense, because we knew that it was harder. And even with only one Drake, there's only 35% of guilds who have done it with only one Drake up on 10 man of all things. So you can look at those stats, and then you'll wonder exactly how those guilds have progressed onto Old War. And there is a staggering difference between Old War and Old War Heroic. Yeah? Normal Old War and Old War Heroic. So if we have a look at Old War Normal, you look at the Siege, yeah? Flame Leviathan, easy as hell boss. 60% of raiding guilds have killed the Flame Leviathan. 50% have killed XT002, 50% Razor Scale, and, 39% Ignis. Well, we don't care about him anyway. Moving on to 41% with Araya. Then you move on to the Keepers. You're looking at between 20 and 30% for each of the Keepers. Mimiron being the hardest, as you might imagine, only killed by 20% of guilds. And this is 3 months on. And Yogg-Saron only killed by 8.4% on 10 man. Now, there's a staggering jump between that and 25 man. Where you have only 29% of guilds have killed Flame Leviathan on 25 man. That's pretty shocking to me. I expected more. The Keepers, Mimiron only 10%, Freya 12%, Hodia 13%, Thorum 11%, and Yogg-Saron 4.6%. Wow. That's kind of crazy. That doesn't show a massive, great transition to me. I mean, what you're looking at is a huge drop-off. Let's have a look at Flame Leviathan. Flame Leviathan, think of a equivalent difficulty boss. Flame Leviathan, let's take one of the medium difficulty bosses in Naxxramas Heroic, yeah? That's how I think about one of those. Let's say, I don't know, Grobulus. Kind of run-of-the-mill boss, or Loatheb, also run-of-the-mill boss. Hygen as well, Noth. Killed by 53% of guilds. And then you move on to Old War Heroic, and you've got a massive drop of over 20% down to 29% of guilds have only killed Flame Leviathan there. Now, are you really telling me? Are you seriously telling me that these guilds can't actually kill Flame Leviathan? You can kill Loatheb, Hygen. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it really doesn't. It's nuts. It really is crazy. Indeed, you're looking at a drop of about 20% plus between any of the 10-man stuff and the 10-man Old War as well. 59% on Flame Leviathan there, and you're looking at about 74 to 78% on the 10-man Naxxramas stuff. Indeed, 83% for Loatheb, 83% for Hygen, 85% for Noth the Plaguebringer. So what does that tell me? Well, I'll tell you what that tells me, particularly looking at Yogg-Saron cleared by so few people, only 3 months in. What that tells me is, this is just a theory of course, is that Naxxramas has not trained anyone, and I do mean anyone, to raid properly. If Naxxramas was supposed to be the raiding 101, then there's been a massive failure and disconnect between Naxxramas and even the first boss of Old War. And even after massive repeated nerfs, XT002 still barely being killed by 20% of guilds. That's just, wow. That's insane. I think Blizzard has got to accept a very fundamental truth here. No matter how much you nerf this content, Flame Leviathan is a walkover. Yeah, accept that. Flame Leviathan is a joke loot boss. We knew that before he started. And indeed, I believe he got nerfed after that. Flame Leviathan No Towers is an absolute hilarious joke. Right? We can conclude this, yes? Okay, if that's the case, then explain to me where this disconnect happened. What happened? Anyone that can kill Archivan can kill freaking Flame Leviathan. And we assume that basically everyone has killed Archivan who has ever raided. So where's that disconnect coming from? I'll tell you where it's coming from. People suck! They're really bad. Really, really bad. Anything that's not a basic tank and spank fight, they can't figure it out. Why? Because you ain't trained them to. The problem with your raiding 101 is that it is so mind-numbingly easy and face-rollable that people learn nothing. Absolutely nothing. So when you presented them with content that was vaguely hard, and I'm talking stuff like Razor Scale is vaguely hard. Flame Leviathan isn't hard at all. XT002 in its current state, vaguely hard. Okay? Vaguely challenging. We're talking Lurker Below challenging. We're talking Void Reaver challenging. Yeah? And we can look at how many guilds. I remember this from WoW Jutsu, right? Over 60%, over 60% of guilds during the time of Black Temple had downed Void Reaver and Lurker Below. True, yeah, about 60%, give or take. So where's the disconnect happening between that and XT002, where only about 20% have killed them? I can't figure it out. And bear in mind, you're loading these guys with all the epics they could possibly need. This is something that players weren't able to do before that. You're just loading them up with these epics, and they still can't do it. Yet, here's the thing. You can't just give them gear and expect them to beat it. They just can't grasp the basic concepts. Because they're terrible. What can you, as Blizzard, do about it? Well, for one thing, you can have a look at Nax and maybe realise that actually all of this crazy nerfing and terribly easy content didn't teach anyone anything about raiding. If you're brand new to raiding and you go through Nax and you find that it's actually less difficult than most heroics, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, have a look at some fights, yeah? You're looking at some fights like stuff in Utgard Keep, Utgard Pinnacle. Have a look at Utgard Keep. The first normal dungeon you put in the way. First normal dungeon. You put it there, they did it. Think about the last boss, Ingvar the Plunderer. Think about it. What did he require? Well, you had to move out of test stuff, and that was kind of about it. And look at some of the other boss, like Utgard Pinnacle. Think about Utgard Pinnacle. And think about what happens. The falling sword, and all the other stuff like that. The razor scale style encounter. Some of these are actually harder than the basic fights in Nax, and yet guys can't do the Nax stuff. They're learning more from heroics than they are from Naxxramas. They're not seeing a appreciable increase in difficulty level and complexity from heroics through to raiding, which is something they used to have. Yeah? This nice little scale that we used to have. We used to have normals, and then we had heroics, which were a big step up in difficulty in TBC. And then you had Karazhan, which worked well, actually. I think that was a reasonable step up from heroics. I think that you could make that step and you could feel comfortable with it as a new raider. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think because the way the progression path is balanced at the moment, players just fall flat on their faces. They really do. And that's a real shame. Now the question I suppose needs to be asked, what can Blizzard do about it? Well, they need to look long and hard at their raid instance and at their starter instance and think about just what people are going to learn from it. It's funny, because you've got something like WoW, and then you've got other games which have, say, training missions and tutorials and all that kind of stuff. But once you get to endgame, you're expected to know enough to be able to go into a raid dungeon, know all the basic principles, and actually do well. And you know what? I think that that's actually the thing that Blizzard has failed constantly to do. This game held you by the hand, yeah, all the way through to max level, and then cut you loose. And actually, I think that by that time happened, people were so dependent on being held by the hand that they were unable to deal with that. And only the really in-depth, hardcore players could actually deal with that. They could deal with cutting loose. They could deal with being on their own and working things out for themselves. Thing is, the game's never required that from anybody before. Because all of the other stuff was just face rollable. All of this stuff was really easy. So I think, to be honest, that Blizzard has got to take raiders, and particularly new raiders, back to school. How do they do that? Well, I have no idea. Honestly, I'm at a loss for words, because I don't think you can do it with the current expansion. I think the way that it's been designed, it's screwed. It is absolutely shafted. There's no possible way you can fix this now. The only way to do it is to bring out another expansion. When your next expansion comes out, then you can have a look at the mistakes made in Wrath, and then go from there. But at the moment, I think things are almost beyond repair. For the new raider is screwed. If you've never raided before and you've just got to level 80, I don't think you're going to learn anything from Naxxramas, and you're never going to progress further than that. And you can just look at the numbers, look at that disconnect. See how little people have learned from Naxxramas. Because they've not got anywhere in Old War whatsoever. They've failed. And it's not necessarily their fault, but let's also accept this. It is entirely possible the players just suck. And you can't fix that by giving them gear. You can't fix that by making things easier. They're always going to be terrible, and they're going to keep sliding into the very pit of terrible if you keep nerfing the content. It won't help. Go back to the drawing board, present a proper, well-staggered, well-scaled progression path. Then you might have a workable system where people can actually learn. My name is Total Biscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. I've got some in-flames for you, and I'll be right back after this with yet more meaty, delicious, juicy content. Enjoy.